Shanti Parikh, Associate Professor of Anthropology and African American Studies. So I have two projects that I'm pursuing right now. One is at the final stages of a manuscript on Black masculinity in East Africa, and that's looking from the colonial era and how colonialism interacted with Black masculinity till today. And then I have another project that's looking at HIV hotspots and specifically mobility and commercial sex work. One of the oldest sex work towns in East Africa happens to be in the area that I do research in. It's in eastern central Uganda along the Trans-Africa Highway. And so since then, the economic base for this town has been commercial sex work. Along the Trans-Africa Highway, there are different truck stops that have emerged, as we call them, comfort spots. So they offer men a place to park their truck, a place to buy food, spend the night, buy necessities, and also buy intimacy. So this project is looking at mobility along the Trans-Africa Highway and then what's driving women into commercial sex work and their strategies for both formulating what we call in anthropology fictive kin. So some of these women are called to those places by friends who are trying, and the women might be, most of them have been married. Many of them have been thrown from their marital property, or their husbands have left them, or their husbands have died. So most of them enter sex work in order to support their families. One of the things that's interesting is what's driving men into buying sex is they say that they're too poor to get married. But nowadays, with consumer goods becoming so expensive and the demand on consumer goods, whether it's a cell phone or a TV, they're also saying they're too poor to afford girlfriends. And their masculine notion of having a girlfriend is that you would be able to offer her something, whether it's her taking her out or treating her well. So men that we're researching are saying, yes, I would love a girlfriend, but it's too expensive. So they're purchasing sex. The larger question that we're interested in terms of application is HIV. So with the high mobility, with the transactional sex that's going on, these are becoming what are called HIV hotspots. And so we're interested to find out how do we use the systems that are already in place. So those might be what they call distributors. It's a person who tells sex workers where truck drivers are going to stop that night. So eventually, hopefully, we'll tap into key people in those sites and do mobile technology interventions and able to get people into care, to get people tested. They've been traditional interviews with sex workers, and we've done participant observation at bars and places where they transact sex work. We've also used a lot of what we call community engaged or participatory techniques. And those are where you get a group of sex workers and customers and you have them doing activities. Something that came out very fascinating to our research team is the mobility of men and women along these hotspots. So for example, if a woman is a sex worker on a truck stop, she'll stay a sex worker on the truck stop routes. And she has a whole network of people who both support her, but are also her enemies. So she might leave a site because there's a rumor that she's HIV positive, or she might go to another site because she hears from a friend of hers that there's a big cargo shipment coming from Mombasa and there's going to be men with a lot of money. So again, we're hoping to use these networks to be able to benefit their lives. It's difficult for them to access testing, and it's very difficult for them to stay on HIV care if they are HIV positive. And that's where the mobile technology apps that we're hoping to develop with these communities. So all the research we've been doing is very much sort of led by the group of sex workers that we're working with, as well as the customers, again, because this tension between it's good for the economy, but they're afraid of what it's doing to sort of the moral compass of their communities.